Hey folks, Jerod Brennen here. And first and foremost, thank you for spending time with me today. This is a topic I'm incredibly passionate about, digital identity and privacy. And I'm grateful for every opportunity I have to share that information with other folks who might be interested in improving not only their privacy and security at work, but more importantly at home with our friends and family. And a special thank you to the cybersecurity team here at the university for giving me another chance to rant and rave about this topic. I spent a number of years working with the OCIO team, and I'm very grateful that I have the chance to come back and continue teaching in this fashion. Prior to today, I've had a couple of opportunities to share information with folks at Cybersecurity Day, with my first talk being on what information you can find about yourself and about other people in the deep web and dark web. Cautiously, obviously, there's some things you can't unsee, but I wanted to take some of the fear and uncertainty out of what that platform is and that network and how it can actually be used in a positive sense, but urging you to approach it cautiously if you choose to explore it on your own. Following that, I shared some information on your mobile device and how you can secure it and use it with privacy in mind, because our mobile devices are becoming a reflection of our digital identity. We do everything from work to online banking to social media to taking pictures and videos of family and friends, all from the one device we have in our hands. So very important to get an understanding of how to protect that device. But I want to go one step further today. And I want to talk about your identity online, your digital identity. And more to the point, I want to help you understand how you can take ownership of that digital identity, which bears the question, Jerod, what do you mean by digital identity? It's a term that we hear a lot. It gets thrown around a lot. It's used in marketing for things like identity theft solutions and products. But digital identity has a very specific meaning, not just in the workplace, not just at home, but in the world we live in, using the technology we use to stay in contact with one another, to communicate with one another. And when I say identity, I don't mean Active Directory accounts or email addresses or the login that you use to get to a website. All of those things are accounts. And each one of those accounts has permissions or entitlements. It allows you to do something. You can move money from your account to someone in your family. You can post to your social media profile and express your opinions in a global platform. But none of those are really your digital identity. Your digital identity is the sum total of all of those things. It's all of the accounts that map back to you, because you are a flesh and blood person and you have established yourself in all of your human face-to-face interactions. And yes, the irony is not lost on me that we're doing this online today. But your digital identity is that reflection of yourself. And if you limit your view or your scope to think it's just my network account, my OSU account, it's just my Buckeye Link account, right? It's just my OnlyFans account. I don't have an OnlyFans, but if I did, right, that would be part of my digital identity. And as you look at taking ownership of your digital identity, understanding that concept is really a crucial first step. It sets you on a path to being successful. So as you look at your digital identity, think all of the things that you do online map back to you. They're a reflection of you. I talk about this stuff in a lot of enterprise settings in higher ed, sometimes on social media. My LinkedIn friends prefer to hear these conversations more than my Facebook friends. But this is a conversation that we're having on a global scale. The World Economic Forum, if you're not familiar, they meet on an annual basis and they talk about issues that impact people around the world, hence the name, and specifically focusing on social and economic issues that impact our ability to engage with modern commerce activities, to live the kind of life that we want to live when certain pockets of the world have access to things that other pockets of the world don't. And some of the goals of the World Economic Forum are really understanding what the barriers and challenges are and how to improve them. And when they met in early 2020 in Davos, Switzerland, following this year's forum, they published a white paper, Reimagining Digital Identity, a Strategic Imperative, that talks about the concept of self-sovereign identity. And by self-sovereign, I mean bring your own identity. So instead of thinking that I'm going to show up at work and they're going to have all these accounts for me and the people at work are going to control everything. And then when I log into social media or online banking, those companies are going to control everything. There's a transformation happening in the world right now where nations are creating digital identities for their citizens. And these digital identities are going to shift how we interact with online services, both at home and at work in the future. So instead of you going to work in IT saying, here's your access, right? Here's the things you need in order to do your job. There's going to be a day where you show up and you say, hey, IT, here's my digital identity. Why don't you grant it the permissions I need to do my job, and shift that ownership, shift that conversation on you. It's a fascinating read, fascinating conversations, but just keep in mind, when we're talking digital identity, this isn't some down the road, not going to happen for decades. This is already happening and already finding its way into our digital lives. And when I think of the social implications, I immediately go to sci-fi movies. Folks who know me know that sci-fi, fantasy, and horror, that's my jam. And anyone who's not seen Minority Report or read any of Philip K. Dick's books, is directed by Steven Spielberg, you're really missing out. In this particular scene, Tom Cruise's character is a fugitive. He's spoiler alert if you haven't seen it yet. He's a law enforcement agent who's changed his mind about how they enforce the law. And as he's trying to hide, one of the things that's revealed is because of where they're going with digital identity in this fictional future, his biometric data, specifically his eyes, are scanned as he's walking in a public space. And this is actually pretty true to form. Advertisers have found that if I can customize an ad based on your digital identity, I can catch your attention. I'll throw your name out there. I'll throw the date you joined, and I'll provide a very specific commercial tailored to you in a way that exceeds any technology we have today, but just for a bit. And this is science fiction, and it speaks to our emphasis on advertising revenue in our current market. But if I look outside of science fiction, if I look outside of the US, for years, and when I say for years, I'm talking since 2014, China has been steadily implementing a social credit system that takes this notion of digital identity and ties it to rewards and penalties for good citizens. And when I say penalties, it's not that you lose 10 points and you can't download an app from Google Play. People who lose points in the social credit system are restricted from traveling. They can be restricted from buying property. They can be restricted from taking out a loan or gaining access to money they need for some other goal they have in their lives. And what do you do in this system to get penalized? Jaywalking. If you are caught jaywalking in certain areas and they catch you on a traffic cam, because that traffic cam is linked to your digital identity, it can automatically either fine you for jaywalking or adjust your social credit score. So the impact to our personal lives here can be devastating. And this is some very Black Mirror concerning sci-fi stuff that isn't quite as fictional as we'd like it to be. But if I look back here in the US, I had an opportunity to sit in on a keynote from Richard Clark, author of multiple books on cybersecurity and privacy. One of his more recent books, The Fifth Domain, talks about how nation states are leveraging their understanding of digital identities to wage war in what may be an indirect fashion, but whether you buy into waging war or whether you want to call it disrupting the political process, one of the things Mr. Clark shared in his keynote was that during the 2016 election, there is evidence of a large nation compromising the US political system and downloading data, not going in and changing votes and making things different than what you and I voted for during the election, but going in and saying, what do we know about these people? Can we profile these people? And since then, there is also evidence that the same nation has been manipulating online services like social media, publishing memes and posts under false identities to to shift the conversation, to change how we are approaching political discourse in this nation. And anybody who's been on social media in the last 4 years knows that there's been some success. It's really damaged the notion of civil conversation and civil discourse. And to that end, it appears to be an effective tactic for a nation who wants to wage war against another nation or disrupt their political cycle. So this notion of digital identity and being able to protect your identity is not just a nice to have. This is paramount to everything that we do in our lives, unless you are absolutely off the grid and entirely independent of relying on any goods or services provided by digital platforms. So the notion of digital identity and digital privacy, if I haven't driven the point home yet, then by all means, go ahead and post your email address and the password for that email in the chat so I can log in after the talk and look at your personal information. Because if privacy isn't a big deal, then what do you have to hide? And I know it makes me uncomfortable even saying that. If you haven't, please don't actually post that, because it is important that we have the option to protect our digital privacy. If we want the integrity of the system to hold together, and when I say the system, I'm talking commerce, I'm talking communication, I'm talking political system. There's so many things where this digital identity and digital privacy stuff is the linchpin. And if we don't take ownership and we don't get it right, things fall apart quickly. But you can be proactive. It's not a negative. It's not overwhelming. There are just a handful of things that you should consider doing to start taking that ownership back, to ensure that you're in a position of stability and strength when it comes to the things that are coming down the line where your identity might be attacked or compromised. Definitely a risk. You can delete things you don't need. We've been using the internet for decades, folks. I know there's stuff out there that we don't need out there anymore. And that includes accounts on services that you stopped using. What's your Hotmail, your Yahoo? What's your email provider today? You may still have like an AOL, right? Some people are still using those services, but other people have migrated off to different email platforms. Well, did you shut that other email off? Is it still out there? Can someone use it? So just deleting things is important. Making it harder for people to authenticate as you, when you use any digital service, part of digital identity is proving that you really are who you say you are. So protecting that, and I'm going to give you some guidance on how to do that, already shuts down a lot of these attacks if people can't pretend to be you online. And then protecting what all of those accounts share with one another, the permissions that you've given them, not just within a system or an application, but all these platforms that are talking to each other. What have you done to minimize the attack surface there? And then all of this comes back to this notion of trust, right? And I want to talk about a few things specifically in the technology space that you can do to increase the trust that you share with the services and applications that you're using. So the first question, I know some of you know who this is. My question for you when it comes to all of the things that your digital identity has access to, do those things spark joy? If you don't need something in your life, decluttering physically does a tremendous amount of benefit, right, of help to just clearing up mental real estate and letting you sit back and look around and say, yeah, this is calm and peaceful. And that's Marie's entire jam is decluttering, right? And only hanging on to the things that spark joy. We'll apply this concept to your digital identity. What social media services are you not using anymore? What websites have you signed up for over the past 20 years that suddenly you just don't care about anymore? Consumer Reports published an article about how to delete online accounts you no longer need. And it has some very specific directions and links for some of the more popular services you might be using. You can visit that website and 10, 15 minutes later, consolidate the amount of accounts linked back to your digital identity. That is not just helpful, that's necessary. Pardon me, that's crucial to helping you declutter your digital life and better protect your digital identity. And when I talk about proving how you log in, right, proving that you are who you say you are, there are 5 things in particular that I recommend everybody does starting today. You can do it while we're talking. I can't see you typing away at your keyboard. I am not going to be offended. Actually, I'd be kind of thrilled if you told me you did some of this right now. Sign up for a password manager. Stop trying to remember all these passwords. More importantly, stop using the same password everywhere, because the one website that gets attacked and then that password ends up on the deep web or dark web, now every website where you're using that password is at risk, every single one. And if you thought that stupid web app you wanted to play around with 3 years ago was fun and you walked away and abandoned it, well, if that account gets compromised and you're using that same password for your current social media accounts, for your current banking, your current email, then someone's going to take over one of your accounts and start impersonating you, which could have very serious, especially financial ramifications. And once you've got a password manager, you can start changing all your passwords. I do it in bits and pieces. I go in and look, and I had one block of time where I would tell myself I'm going to change 20 passwords today. And it would take a few minutes, but over the course of a month, because I sign up for everything, I was able to randomize passwords across all of these websites. So I don't care if they get compromised. These ones that I'm still interested in and still using, because I did delete a lot along the way, but you can have that password. It doesn't work anywhere else. It's worthless. All the time and effort, I'm talking to the cyber criminals, right? All the time and effort that you put in compromising that service accomplished nothing, because you can't use my password anywhere else. And when you start getting away from this password reuse, where you're using the same password everywhere, you can pick crazy, stupid 20-character complex passwords that you could never remember, because you don't have to, right? You're letting the password manager do that for you. There was an anecdote about Albert Einstein, who would write down the stupidest things. And somebody asked him, why are you writing that down? He's like, I don't want to waste any of my brain power trying to remember this. Why would I? And when we look at the technology available today, passwords are a clear example of something you shouldn't even be trying to remember. Just put it in the password manager and forget about it. And then as you eliminate password use, you start to change everything. And you've got different passwords on all these websites. Take a look at multi-factor authentication, not just for work, right? Not just Duo. There are a couple of different services and apps. I'll talk about them in a moment that you can use to turn on 2-factor authentication to all the things that you're logging into. Then it doesn't have to be all the things, frankly. Don't overwhelm yourself. Start with your email, because if somebody gets your email, that's bad. then they can start resetting passwords everywhere you're using that email to log in. So put two-factor in front of your email, put it in front of your bank account, put it in front of your social media platforms. Just those three, right? That's not an overwhelming number of accounts, but if you put MFA in front of those accounts, in addition to these crazy complex passwords, you're not going to have people taking over your accounts. The likelihood just bottoms out. But I'll talk about more around that in just a moment. When I talk about decluttering and getting things rid of things you don't need, I know when I shared information on mobile devices, I talked about deleting apps from your phone. Rock simple. And I know people in the room were taking their phones out and deleting apps they didn't use, and already one tiny step improving the security of their device. Well, look at your digital identity. Look at the accounts associated with identity and ask yourself, have I granted permission for any services to use this account? And when I say that, take a look at Google. Google, they're kind of popular. Anybody who's going to listen in on Rob's talk will have a chance to ask some Google specific questions. Their popularity comes with a global user base in the millions, tens of millions. It's a lot. And when you have a service that popular, a website might say, look, I could build this whole login thing and keep track of users and passwords. Or I could just say, if you log into your Google account, we'll just say that we trust Google and we'll go ahead and log you right into our website. So over time, people with Google accounts have said, I trust this app with my Google account. I can log into this app with my Google account. And I wrote a blog when I was working at the university when Pokemon Go was the hot sexy. When that application said, just log in with your Google account, they didn't do security or privacy very well out of the gate. And so if you said yes, you were granting that company full access to your Google account. It wasn't just log in, but it could read your email. It could read your calendar. It could see everybody in your address book. It was a mess. They fixed it pretty quick when they got called out for it, but that's Google. I mean, these companies, 986 who made Pokemon Go, they're large and they have resources. Some of these other companies that you've granted Google permission to log into may not be cleaned up. They may still be exposed. And if you're not using them, turn it off. You don't need it anymore. And so I shared some links here in the presentation for Google, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram that will take you right to the part of your account where you can start deleting things and turning things off. But revoking that unused access is it's such a simple, effective step at improving the security and the privacy around your digital identity. And on that note, I should have mentioned early on, there will be a PDF available for download, both within the cybersecurity team and then hopefully here within the platform. Don't try to write all these down. I just want you to take the PDF and have it, right? This is something you can come back to when you're ready. Click on the links and it'll take you right there. I want to make this as easy as possible for you. And on that note of deleting these things and turning things off, I have started to state this over and over. This is quickly becoming my InfoSec mantra. Complexity is the enemy of security. In a large enterprise environment, in an environment as large as The Ohio State University, there are a lot of systems and applications and technologies that all work together. And the complexity behind that is necessary as organizations grow in size. But it's on teams like the OCIO to figure out how to best manage that complexity. Because the more complex an environment becomes, the more difficult it is to maintain and difficult to secure. And that exact same principle, the exact same principle applies to your personal life. If you try to overcomplicate by setting up all these things and making this unnecessarily complex, it's going to be harder for you to take control of your digital identity. So don't start with trying to secure everything. Start with getting rid of the stuff that shouldn't be there in the first place. so that you're only left with a smaller, more manageable set of things that you really care about. And as you make these changes, you're still going to be using these systems and apps on a day-to-day basis. And what I have been overjoyed to see in the industry as a whole is the increased adoption of encryption, especially for communications. Google now will prevent you from going to certain websites between Google and OpenDNS, depending on how the encryption certificate's configured. Just to take it one step ahead to say, look, you don't need to understand how these certificates work as an end user, but as a technology company, we understand and we're going to protect you. I look at not-for-profit nonprofits as well, particularly the Electronic Frontier Foundation. If you can see over the background, I've actually got my EFF hoodie hanging up by the door. A big advocate for and supporter of the work that organization does. They're brilliant. But they actually created a browser extension called HTTPS Everywhere, that when you go to a website, it will look and say, hey, does this website support encryption? And even if you're on an unencrypted version of the page, that extension will automatically take you over to the encrypted version to keep you safe without you having to do anything. No, it's kind of tricky because if someone has built a web application that uses encrypted and unencrypted communication, some of that unencrypted stuff might break. So it's trial and error. It's gotten a lot better over the years as more organizations have understood that, yeah, encryption is kind of important. But when you have that encryption in place, the assurance that you have that you're talking to the people you really think you're talking to at a company level, not as an individual level, but that trust goes way up. And when you have that encryption in place, the likelihood that somebody has injected themselves in between you and the company you're talking to, that likelihood goes way down, because the encryption is like it's a protective tunnel that keeps them out, so they can't come in and change data or steal data. And encryption, just in general, when done right, increases the control you have over your digital identity by increasing that trust that you're placing in these organizations that you're speaking to and these apps that you're using. Mozilla, they're another nonprofit that's been killing it for years with, Firefox is obviously their flagship project, but they've got a VPN now. You can go to vpn.mozilla.org and check it out. And even if it's not Mozilla, I've got another resource I'll share in a bit. If for some reason you don't want to use our service, there are a lot of VPN providers out there that will give you the ability to encrypt everything that travels from your laptop and out, or your phone and out. But it's on you to actually install it and turn it on. Now, I offer this up. Know that the university has their own VPN technology, and layering one VPN on top of another, maybe not the best idea. So if you're using university equipment, definitely reach out to your IT support folks, your security liaisons, the office of the CIO. There are a lot of people who know how this stuff works and can give you guidance. But when it comes to your personal stuff, use it, right? You can do whatever you want on your home machine, on your personal devices. And you should absolutely be using VPNs, trusted VPNs. More on that in a sec. And I actually put a YouTube video together with all of the activity, in particular around Black Lives Matter and some of the protests we're seeing. I have a lot of friends and family who have been right in the middle of this, and I want to help them be safe. There's an application called Signal that allows you to send encrypted messages to each other. It's like text messaging, but worlds better, because you control the privacy, you control the security of that. But sometimes people will go out to an app store, download the app, and start using it and think everything is just automatically configured securely and privately, and that's not the case. So the tutorial I put together was a quick 5-minute walkthrough on how to turn certain things on and off and why that matters. But there are so many ways that you can use encrypted technology when you're interacting with people from a laptop, a tablet, or a smartphone. And if you want to take ownership of your digital identity, you should make it a habit to seek out encrypted alternatives and to seek out trusted encrypted alternatives and make sure you're using them. So you're probably sitting there thinking, oh my God, Jerod, you've thrown so much at me already. Where do I even begin? I'm going to give you a step-by-step checklist, which again, highly encourage you to hang on to this PDF because the stuff I'm sharing should hopefully be good for years. The principles are going to remain the same. Some of the technology might change, but here's your step-by-step for how to take ownership of your digital identity. Step one, I'm really big on seek to understand, right? You have to take a minute and figure out what it is you're trying to protect in the first place. So make a list of all the important apps that you use. What email accounts do you have, both active and inactive? What financial accounts do you have? Not just banking and investing, but any social payments, stuff like Venmo or PayPal, where it's direct through a mobile app. List out every one of those. And then social media accounts, again, the ones that you're actively using and the ones that you're ready to walk away from. If you take the time to list these apps out, you've immediately taken more control of your digital identity because you've already determined the area that you're going to focus on, the area that you're going to apply changes to. And when I say this is a short list designed to keep you in a manageable flow for making these changes, because we don't want anybody to burn out. We don't want anybody to get fed up and say, I can't do this. We want to enable people to be successful. So just start with the apps that are most important to you. And you may have other apps that you list here. Good. It's got to be personal. It's got to be the stuff that you use and that you know and that you care about. Once you have the apps identified, you can start making those password changes I talk about and storing your new passwords in some sort of password manager. Personally, I'm a LastPass user for multiple reasons. I like a lot of what they bring to the table and how they manage both their company and the technology that they publish. LastPass is not the only player in this space. 1Password, Bitwarden, Dashlane, KeePassXC, NordPass, NordVPN is another one of those trusted services you'll hear about on the VPN space. They all offer password managers. So if you're not a LastPass fan, that's okay. If you want something that is open source and local, you've got options. But I would encourage you to go through this list and find the one that works for you. And not just you, right? Especially if you've got friends or family who you're trying to help. If you're using the same technology, or in family cases, if you're all sharing like a family account, it makes it easier to manage over time, which reduces the complexity of everybody using something different. So find a password manager that works for you and start using it just for those most important accounts, the accounts that you care about, the ones that you just put in that list. Then I want you to go to two-factor auth, all spelled out, TWO, factorauth.org, and look at which of the apps that you've listed, the websites, support two-factor authentication. And they'll have a lot of options. The most popular two-factor clients that you can put on your smartphone are Authy, Google Authenticator, and Microsoft Authenticator. I know there's more than that, but some websites won't support one of these apps. They may say, we'll send a text to your phone. Okay, yeah, an SMS message, text message that has a two-factor token in it is less secure than using an authenticator app. But it is so much more secure than not using two-factor in the first place. So I would also encourage you, don't fall into that all or nothing camp. If it doesn't support an authenticator app, I'm not going to do it. You're shooting yourself in the foot, and that's unnecessary. If they support two-factor in any fashion, use it. But if they support two-factor using one of these authenticator apps, I'd consider you to start there because that's the more secure option. Once you get your accounts, those accounts tied back to your digital identity well in hand, I want you to step away from the accounts and I want you to look at your credit. Because what we found with the Equifax breach, and what I'm sure some of you unfortunately have seen as well, is that attackers are looking for ways to make money quickly. Right? You have money, they want money. If they can sign up for a credit card in your name, if they can get any information by compromising your digital identity, a loan, right? Health insurance, whatever they're trying to steal, you can shut them down by freezing your credit and only turning it back on when you need to have someone run it. So unless you're out buying cars every other day or buying houses every month, chances are you probably don't need to leave your credit unfrozen. This is actually just a general best practice. But your digital identity and your credit are intricately connected. They are intimate, intimately connected. And if you would take just a few minutes to go out and follow the guidance here, the ftc.gov link I have here takes you straight to a page that shows you exactly how to freeze your credit on all three of these platforms. When you freeze your credit, you're going to be given a PIN that you can use to unfreeze it at any time. Go to a website, click a button, enter your PIN, and then you'll enter the duration that you want your credit to be unfrozen. Since you're already using a password manager, you can save those PINs in your password vault as like a secure note, right? Or just a reference to these websites, so that you never have to remember it. You don't have to write it down somewhere. You've securely stored that information in a password manager that hopefully you're protecting with a multi-factor authentication token. But definitely freeze your credit and then take a look at some of the VPN options available. I'm not going to give you one specific here. I mentioned Mozilla and I mentioned Nord, both reputable, but I'm not going to tell you to use either one permanently. I'm going to tell you, you understand what your technical capabilities are and you understand what you're comfortable with. The only thing that you might be missing is an understanding of which VPN providers are trustworthy versus which ones are kind of shady. Fortunately, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has done some of that work for you. And they actually link out, they have an article here on choosing the VPN that's right for you that links out to a comparison of VPN providers so that you can make an informed decision about the one that's going to work for you. If you're at home with a family of 5 and everybody's on different mobile devices, some Android, some iPhone, all of that information is in a table that you can just scroll down and say, oh, that one looks good. And you're not committing for life, folks. You don't have to sign up for one and then only use that forever. You are allowed to change your mind if you find something you don't like about that provider. But knowing that this information is out there and actually starting to use these providers so it becomes a part of your digital interaction, your digital experience, is a crucial step. So start using a VPN from mobile devices, tablets, and laptops. And then I know I said delete unused accounts, and I have a hunch that some of you were saying, I don't even know what those accounts are. If I know what username I use on LinkedIn, but where else do I still have an account that's active? The websites I've listed here, NameCheck, Noam, Check Usernames, and then Sherlock, which is actually an app for some of the more geeky among us, will go out and look at all these different social media services. If you give it a username and say, where does this username exist? It will tell you. And someone else may be using the same username you are on a different platform, but it is an incredibly quick way to help refresh your memory of where you may have created accounts over the years. Sherlock is actually, it's an open source utility that runs in Docker. So for the folks on the call who just want to get their nerd on and try this from a different angle instead of going through a website, give Sherlock a spin. I think you'll enjoy it. Step 7 of my 8-step process, you should draft a personal incident response plan. Assume that something is going to go wrong. Someone's going to compromise your Twitter account. Someone is going to commit identity theft and sign up for a loan under your name, or someone in your family. One thing that we learn early in cybersecurity is by planning for bad things to happen, you can think through how you're going to respond and actually write down some ideas so that when something happens, you're not in a panic and you're not scrambling to find contact information or to determine who should I even call and talk to and ask what to do next. No, you can think through that now when it's not an issue, so that if it were to ever happen, it'll be much less impactful. You'll be able to identify and resolve the issue more quickly, get back to your day-to-day activities. You take control of your digital identity, but you have to be proactive here. You have to think through it and write some of this stuff down. Both the the FTC and LifeLock have articles on information you should consider when planning your personal incident response plan, but cannot recommend this enough. And then my last step, take everything that I just shared with you and share it with somebody else. Because as somebody who wants to go to be a teacher, one of the things I learned in my own ed experience is that when you get to a point that you can teach something to somebody else, it shows that you have a much more firm grasp of the concepts that you're talking about. The more effective teachers are the ones who actually understand this and can explain it. And I'd argue that sometimes the more effective doers are the people who can teach a thing really well. If you've taken anything from the time we've had together today and said, wow, that's great, I want to use that, and that's going to make such a difference in me starting down this path of taking control of my digital identity, I promise you have somebody in your life who would benefit from that same interaction. So download this presentation, give them the 2-minute version, and then just answer questions they have. And if you don't have all the answers, help them figure it out with them. I don't want to volunteer anybody in the OCIO. I know everybody's busy right now, but you can also hit up some of the people on the cybersecurity team and say, hey, do you have any guidance that we could share out? I know the people on that team and I know they would love to help. So use them as a resource. Use me as a resource. Hit me up and say, Jerod, do you have anything that would help me with this specific thing? Because I'm trying to get the point across and it's not clicking. So make sure that that's your last step, because folks, this whole digital identity stuff isn't that Minority Report future crime scenario that we may or may not see in the next few decades. It is already happening. And if you're using any online services, you have a digital identity. It's messy because we don't have it centralized, and we've got some things we don't need, and we've got some insecure settings in different apps and weak passwords, but you can clean it up. It's not overly complicated, and hopefully some of the information I shared here will help you do just that step by step. As you're making these changes, what you'll find, hopefully, is that there's a real benefit to having a privacy first mindset. And as you look at the technology you use every day, there are privacy centric alternatives. Like, for example, if you're using Chrome or Firefox, maybe check out Brave. Brave is a privacy first browser that automatically provides some protections for you when you're online. If you're not comfortable searching on Bing, I know people still use Bing, right? If you're using Bing or Google, use DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo is a privacy-first search engine. Signal is a privacy-first messaging app. That two-factor site I listed earlier, the Surveillance Self-Defense resource from the Electronic Frontier Foundation, provide even more options for privacy-first alternatives. If you adopt a privacy-first mindset when you're taking ownership of your digital identity, you reduce the likelihood that bad things are going to happen down the line because you're proactively defending yourself against attacks that haven't even happened. So if you want to dig deeper into that World Economic Forum paper about China's social credit system, or if you wanted to read the Fifth Domain from Richard Clark, I've got links here for you to find that information. And if you want to connect with me online, reach out on LinkedIn. I do have a Twitter account, but it just cross-posts everything from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is really where I engage people in conversation. Or, go out to my SlideShare, my speaker deck. I tend to publish talks out there if I've got permission to do so. But stay engaged, connect with me, and then when the time comes, you want to hit me up with a question. I'll do my best to answer and help out because, like I said at the beginning, folks, this stuff's a big deal and it's really important to me. And if I can help you be successful, I think that's time well spent. So thank you very much. I do definitely want to open things up for chat and conversation and see if you have any questions I can help you out with right now. But please stay safe out there, share what you've learned, and we'll all get better by helping each other out. Thanks again, folks.